Another game week in Sky Bet League One has passed. It's time we sit down and chat about everything that went on. Let's go. As always, if you do find value from the content and maybe learn something new, who'd have thought it, please make sure you leave a like and subscribe. We're so close to 7,000 subscribers. We're looking to push on and grow the podcast further this year. You can do that for free by hitting the button down below. Over 100 likes would be fantastic. Your support recently has been sublime. Let's begin with the first game and head to Leyton Orient because they hosted Bolton Wanderers. It finishes Leyton Orient 1, Bolton Wanderers 0. The XG 0.98 to 0.7. Leyton Orient make it 5 wins out of their last 5. In fact, the last team that beat them was in fact Bolton Wanderers. Yesterday, they got their revenge. Let's begin with Leyton Orient first. That's now 6 points from POMPEY and Bolton in just 2 weeks. But it's the way they're going about their business that's even more impressive. The bravery to demand possession against top opposition is the reason why they're being feared. Sitting deep, soaking up pressure, going long is not an approach. It's not an option. In fact, they're forcing opposing teams to change their approach. That's how impressive they've been. Richie Wellens deserves so much credit for this. They've entered the league, stabilised so well, but have stuck to their principles through thick and thin. Yesterday was a fantastic example of executing a game plan so well. For Bolton Wanderers, we all know how Ian Evatt wants his sides to play. We've seen it work time and time again, but that Bolton performance was a million miles away from those levels. The build-up play looked quite lethargic, desperate, way too early. Normally patient, intricate passes are crucial, but even those key aspects looked off. Sloppiness in the key departments were punished, especially when you're playing a hard-working but also expansive team in Sky Bet League One. Again, credit to Leyton Orient. When taking a look at the graph in front of you, it once again reinforces the biggest Bolton problem. The rhythm was never grasped and the control was never gained. 2 very key aspects of the principles required to be successful when you're setting up with Ian Evatt at the helm. 2 big chances missed by Dean Charles wasn't ideal, but the general sway of the game was always towards the home side. When looking at the stats, I want to come back to the bravery of Leyton Orient. Whoever they play, home or away, their intention is to win using their style. They limited Bolton to 51% possession over the 90 minutes. For context, the away side have been averaging 59% over the course of the season so far. The easy option would have been to concede possession, give the majority to Bolton Wanderers, sit deep, soak up pressure, and then play on the break. But that's not the way Richie Wellens wants his side to approach games of football, and yesterday we saw exactly why. The home side accumulated more total shots by 7, shots on target by 4, accurate passes, long balls, crosses, interceptions and clearances. In the key areas, both in attack and defensively, they wiped the floor of Bolton Wanderers, and as we know, not many sides will do that this season. Of course, the elephant in the room, the Dean Charles sitters, they are game-changing moments. We speak about game state. If those are converted, which they have to be, this could have been very different. The truth is, Bolton had the opportunity to win this game of football, score 2 goals and not be the better team. We go on about finding ways to win. Bolton, they missed their opportunity to find a way to win, even though they weren't as good as Leyton Orient. We're looking at key players. Look, the organisation defensively from Leyton Orient should be praised. In fact, the back 4 were involved in 31 defensive actions over the 90 minutes, but they stayed strong throughout. Super Danaji is becoming a hero at Leyton Orient. He scored a crucial goal against POMPEY last time out and did exactly the same again yesterday. The back-to-goal threat, ability to drive with power and finish chances, you can see why he's becoming such an important part of this high-flying Leyton Orient team. The next game, Peterborough 2, Shrewsbury 1, the XG 2.35 to 0.48. That's now 11 games unbeaten for Posh in League One as they grind their way to 3 points at home. Let's touch on Posh first. The reverse fixture was so similar to this one. Shrewsbury score first, sit in, but Posh find a way. It won't go down as Peterborough's most glamorous performance of the season. Yesterday was about patience and belief that their front-footed, possession-hungry style will eventually pay off. And it did. Shrewsbury had very little intention to play progressive football at any point in the match, so the Posh plan was simple. Still difficult, and they made it more difficult than maybe they needed to, but it was simple on the eye: suffocate and wait for capitulation. And eventually, of course, that came. When looking at Shrewsbury, it was the same old story for Shrewsbury hope for the first goal and then go even tighter and compact in the low block. The ability to have large spells of control is non-existent, and the reactive approach is simply one-dimensional and often footballing suicide. That's now 1 win out of 8 for Shrewsbury, who plummet down to 19th in the League One table. When looking at the graph in front of you, brought to you by SofaScore, should we expect anything different? A side wanting all of the ball versus a side that have no intention to have the ball and are extremely happy to sit in. The graph visualises exactly that. It was Posh domination throughout, with very minimal glimpses of Shrewsbury forward play. When taking a look at the stats, 74% possession, 20 shots, 4 big chances, 753 passes, Peterborough, as expected, piled on the pressure and waited for Shrewsbury to collapse. As for the away side, the turgid and quite painful football does remain the same. Matt Taylor's side completed 153 passes over 90 minutes. That's an average of 1.7 successful passes every minute. That's dreadful. As for Peterborough, they managed 7.2. Shrewsbury had a 59% pass accuracy when the final whistle was blown. Essentially, on average, for every 3 passes, the third pass won't go to the intended target. We spoke a few weeks ago about the lack of good, any attacking style of play, and that looks to be exactly the same. Score a goal and then sit in and defend for their lives. Against the side of this quality, who are so comfortable in transitioning, in build-up, it was only a matter of time. Gifting the ball to Peterborough time and time again is essentially game over. Let's take a look at the shot maps in front of you now. For even more emphasis on the quality and positioning of the shots both teams had, take a look at the game shot map. On first glance, you think Shrewsbury had a good number, but the important bit is the areas. The away side only had 4 shots out of 14 inside the box, with a combined XG of 0.18. There were no clear-cut chances in good areas. When looking at key players, Joel Randall has come to life this season. Operating as a progressive, creative attacking midfielder, he was so good once again yesterday. He scored from a well-timed run into the box, but also accumulated 2 big chances, 8 passes into the final third, and a 94% pass accuracy. For an attacking midfielder looking to take risks, that's pretty good going, and shows exactly the way that Peterborough want to keep hold of the ball even when they're being risky in chance creation. Fantastic, good win for Peterborough once again. The next game, Burton 2, Charlton 0. The XG 0.53 to 0.95. Charlton may have been aggressive in the transfer market this week, but the game yesterday meant they last won 11 games ago in all competitions. Let's touch on Burton first. It was the first win of the Patterson era. It wasn't always pretty, but it was defensively robust. Burton didn't create loads of chances or even dominate large patches of the game, but the game plan was built on total organisation, out of possession and clinical finishing when brief chances were created. For Charlton, some new faces in the starting 11 and the bench, but the same disappointing outcome. With the ball, there were signs of improvement, but at the back, it was the same old story. The pressure on Michael Appleton worsens. That's now 5 defeats in their last 6, with their last clean sheet coming in late October. Concerned over a clear style of play, ability to create good number of chances over 90 minutes and defend competently are all being highlighted by Charlton fans right now. And let's be honest, let's be totally frank, it's all pretty fair. When looking at the graph in front of you, firstly, Burton scored 2 goals in this game, and when looking at it at first glance, that is difficult to see. They were super ruthless in front of goal, and of course defensively were great. As for the away side, bear with me. Charlton are really struggling, they're massively underachieving, and Michael Appleton must be criticised. However, dangerous to use that word when describing Charlton's season so far. In possession, there were improvements. Building up, they did look better. The graph does show the dominance. It also shows the lack of clear-cut chances, but it's a very small positive. At least they're not chasing games and being totally reactive. It's damning to even say that, but it's where this football club currently finds itself. When looking at the stats, we speak a lot about being effective with limited product, and Burton was superb at doing that yesterday. With 27% of the ball, they managed to accumulate the same number of shots on target and more big chances than Charlton. It wasn't always free-flowing, but it was far more effective. Charlton had all of the ball. They ended the game with 73% possession and completed 656 passes. Only Peterborough made more this weekend, but far too often it was passive and wasn't creating good chances. The issues really lie in both boxes. Very few good chances and some woeful defending. Burton's first goal comes from a 50-50, great flick on, great finish. The second goal is an absolute disgrace from a defensive point of view, and the final individual mistake means they can't even blame the linesman. The lack of authority and laziness at the back will keep costing them this season. That ball had to be cleared twice, and then as for Watson, it's a nightmare. It can't be offside because Watson, he has the last touch and then Brayford finishes it off. It is awful defending and almost a snapshot as to how it's been all season for Charlton. When looking at the average positions, only a brief look but a chance to understand how the new Charlton players will fit in. The Dapo playing off Alfie May makes sense and worked a few times yesterday. It looked frightening on paper. You'd imagine the new centre-backs will come in for Ness and Thomas next week. Appleton doesn't have long to turn things around. Good, proven League One players are being recruited, and again, players that have played higher than League One too, and the results need to follow. That's the bottom line. When looking at the key players, the Burton backline should be given the most praise. John Brayford is part of that defence, scored and looked immense. He won every duel, both in the air and on the ground, accumulating 6 clearances, 3 recoveries and 6 defensive actions. Matt Crocombe, the Burton goalkeeper, played his part too. Lovely distribution for the first goal, floated ball in, great flick on, great finish. He also prevented an XG of 1.14, saving everything that came his way. The final game in real detail, Fleetwood 0, Pompey 1. The XG 0.42 to 0.78. Pompey were back to winning ways. It wasn't always breathtaking, it wasn't mind-blowing, but it didn't really need to be. Let's chat about it. Let's begin with Fleetwood first. Beginning with Fleetwood, extremely tough times. Every week feels like rock bottom. 9 points adrift in the bottom 4 with 5 straight League One defeats. I actually saw this game. Oxford's match was postponed against Northampton, so I watched this game. I couldn't quite believe visually just how much confidence and quality was missing from this team. I know the league position doesn't lie, and Nappers does a great job of documenting what has been a terrible season, but there's almost an acceptance visually watching it. In January, by the way, there's an acceptance they're going down, and that is not acceptable. The players need to take so much heat for that. Whoever stands in that Fleetwood dugout, Brown, Johnson, Charlie Adam, that group of players don't believe they're going to stay up. That's the truth of the matter. We're looking at Portsmouth. I imagine the general emotion is relief, but also the start of what needs to be a good run with better performances over complete games of football. First gear, maybe second gear, I'm not sure. Pompey did what they needed to do. Let's get together. They found a way to win. A change in formation, change in personnel in some interesting roles. More on that later. You have to say it worked. It wasn't always free-flowing. It wasn't always pretty. I don't think it's overly sustainable with those players. But it won the 3 points, and that is what Pompey are going to be caring about. That's it. We're looking at the graph in front of you now. The first half was all Pompey. The stats will show this further in a moment, but it was total control and more of the approach that's been missing in recent weeks. Fleetwood did improve after the break. I mean, it couldn't have got much worse, but the forward intent did look okay. Not great, but mildly hopeful, and that's something to hang on to because the first half was totally unacceptable and looked like a side that were just happy to not pass forwards. Just pass off the pitch a lot of the time. When looking at the stats, the first 45 was all in one direction, and it wasn't the home side. Fleetwood had 32% of the ball, failing to register a single shot on goal, and worse than that, they also completed under 100 passes. They finished the game with a 67% pass accuracy and misplaced 95 passes over the course of the game. Countless times a simple pass went out of play or straight to a Pompey play. It happened time and time again. The basics are missing from this Fleetwood team. Forget the technical stuff. I won't. They can work on that if they need to later on. But first, the basics have to be better, and simple passes in both a defensive sense and an attacking sense need to be improved. If you can't do the simple stuff, you're going to get relegated. That will relegate any team, whoever you're playing. When looking at the average positions, how on earth did Mousinho set up this team, and is it here to stay? It almost felt like a 3-4-3 with Lowry playing extremely inverted to become an extra wide midfielder. Along with key players out injured, I think Mousinho wanted to have as many bodies in the centre as possible, pack the midfield with Marlon Packer part of that, and control all proceedings of the match. Lowry and Devlin's positions can make Kamara and Lane as safe as possible when playing high up, keeping the threat and pace in behind. I'll be honest, I don't quite know what Lowry's position was. Devlin's slightly more definitive, like a right wing back, right midfielder. Lowry, inverted left midfielder. I don't really know. It did work. They won the game. I actually thought Lowry was good. I think he did do very, very well at progressing the ball forward at times. I'm not quite sure what the position and role was, but again, it gave more bodies and better technical footballers in the right areas, and again, protected Lane and Kamara. They could stay high up, they could be the pace in behind and go 1v1 time and time again. It did work. Is it long term? With those group of players, I don't think so, but it's a different option to revert to if needed within a game of football or against certain opposition from the start. We speak about options and different ways of playing. Mousinho, he might have stumbled across a decent one yesterday. As a bit of fun, this is a fully fit Pompey team in that system. And look, it still does look dangerous. Obviously, Paul and Robertson won't play again this season, but a new centre-back and creative midfielder, things could get interesting. Against certain opposition, of course, that's really important to say. As for Fleetwood, it's deep, compact and way too cramped. There's no outball, very little pace in behind and no intention to widen the game up at any point. Of course, when you're chasing the game for large periods, you're probably quite deep, but just about 4 Fleetwood players outside their own half is very damning. They never got a comfortable moment with the ball. It was frantic and then it was gone again. So around the grounds we go. Burton 2, Charlton 0. Stevenage Barnsley was postponed at 1 p.m. Not a great look there. Port Vale Wickham was also postponed. That was done the night before. Peterborough 2, Shrewsbury 1. Oxford and Northampton. That match was also postponed. That was done the day of the game at about 10 a.m. Lincoln 0, Derby 0. Leyton Orient 1, Bolton 0. Fleetwood 0, Pompey 1. Exeter 0. Cambridge 0, Cheltenham Town Carlisle was also postponed. Bristol Rovers 1, Blackpool 2 and Wigan 0, Reading 0. Thank you so much for tuning in for this roundup today. Until next time, I've been Jack. This has been the Jack Wood Football Podcast. Please leave a like and subscribe. Have a great rest of your weekend and I will see you all very, very soon. Take care.